You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm Mess, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Ryan, and you're listening to Season 6 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast. The podcast in which Ryan, yes, still is the expert on Warhammer 40k, and I am, yes, still the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. I think it's been a little bit of a break since the last episode we've done. Probably there will be an Outcast episode. If you don't know what that means, Ryan, please put it up now, that episode. And let's do a follow-up of last episode, Ryan.
Alright, so as a quick summary for last time, because it probably won't be a break for the viewers, but there was a bit of a gap for us because of recording schedules. So last time we were talking about Ahriman. We got into his, the proper modern storyline that we were going to be doing. And, he went into exile after his massive fuck-up with the rubric. And since then, he's, forgotten his past, or at least tried to as best he can. And he's adopted this new persona of Horkos, this meek little sorcerer in the back of some Chaos Warband. But because of, a weird, cruel twist of fate, he's been dragged back into the kind of limelight and had to, step up his game again, be who he really is again. Very unfortunately for him. And now he has murdered the Chaos Warband he was part of and teamed up with a rogue tech priest and 3 rogue space marines. And together they've taken over a void ship called the Titan Child, and they're setting off into the warp.
Nice.
Also, I don't know, you'll probably notice this, it's just got very sunny and a perfect line to where I am. So, one side of my face is glowing, and it's very painful.
And in this season, we also bring special effects.
Unintentional, but yes. Until the fire kicks off, I'll see how long and keep recording before it becomes an issue.
Want to play chicken, Ryan? Last to leave the house.
Chicken. I like it. I feel like the rabbit would be the last one to leave my house. I feel like he's not going anywhere on his own. And I'll also mention that, because again, they've took over the void ship, and they're heading off into the warp to start, the proper journey of this storyline, right? We're past the prologue now. We're getting into things now. They also have with them a navigator so that they can go into the warp. So a navigator is a necessary part. Meroth, who is one of the sorcerers that was part of the Chaos Warband, who is now like a broken, yammering wretch of a man. And the kinda dead, now possessed carcass of one of the Space Marines' brothers.
Yeah.
So that makes up our party of freaks this time. For the record, right, this becomes like a recurring theme in various Warhammer 40k storylines, where it's just following a party of total weirdos that have no business, getting anything done. The only person in this group that should really be accomplishing anything is Ahriman himself, and arguably he'd get more done on his own than he does with the rest of them.
Yeah.
But this is how these storylines go. There's always a weird conglomeration of strange characters that end up together. You'll notice it more if we ever do a few Inquisitor storylines, because Inquisitors love getting together a band of misfits. It's like their whole thing. So, you ready for this?
I guess so.
I'd hope so. So, after, clearing out the Titan Child of all the remaining Chaos Warband members, and blowing up Tolbek's ship. Tolbek was the sorcerer that recognized Ahriman, and it led to a brief fight. After blowing up his ship as well, because you don't know what's on there, Ahriman and his ship now sawed off into the warp to get the hell away from here. Because if Tolbek found them, someone else is going to find them. So they need to get the hell away from this place. Right? They need to end up somewhere that they don't even know where they are, so that no one can find them. That's usually a good rule. But there's a few things kind of go on in this period where they're just on the ship traveling before they kind of, because they're trying to figure out what the plan is really, or Ahriman's trying to figure out what the plan is really, because these people have all kind of sworn allegiance to him in some way or another. The Space Marines all owe him their lives because he freed them, so they technically owe him, and they're kind of bound by oath, so they have to follow him. Carmenta just wants her ship to be okay, and Ahriman's our best bet at that. Meroth is a yammering, I don't even know what, sphincter? Is a yammering sphincter. That's a good term for Meroth. So he's just going to blindly follow whatever. And yeah, so they're kind of just waiting for Ahriman to tell them what to do at this point. But there's this kind of like downtime period where a few things go on. So Astrios, the Psyker leader of the Space Marines, and his brothers end up in this kind of fight because their chapter's way of like sorting out arguments and stuff, or like, you know, questions of command, is that one of their guys would challenge the leader to a fight. And if the challenger won, then the leader had to, like, you know, bow to the group consensus, basically. But if the leader won, then they would continue on the leader's path. So they end up fighting and arguing about whether or not they should actually follow Ahriman. Astrios kicks his brother's ass, so they all kind of just go, alright, I guess we're following him now. But that's kind of all it is. So, begrudgingly, the Space Marines are going to follow Ahriman. Ahriman, during this time, goes and visits the two Rubricae that Tallbeck brought with him, because they're just kind of standing there like statues now, that Tallbeck's not controlling them. And he realizes that he does know who they are. He remembers these people, but to be fair, he'll probably remember any of them, right? Because, like, I think it's hard to forget someone that you've killed, you know? Especially if they're still walking around. Like, I feel like it's kind of stuff you remember. So, he goes and he kind of talks at them for a while and realizes who they are. He kind of rolls over his memories of them. One of them has possibly the coolest names I've ever heard. One of them is Helio Isidorus. And I don't know why, but I love that name. It might just be the way that the voice actor of Ahriman says it in the audiobooks, but it's cool. And for completion's sake, the other one is Mabius Roll. He's much less important in the long run. Helio Isidorus, remember that name, he comes up a lot. This one automaton somehow becomes very important to the plot going forward. Which you would not expect. And there's a couple other like side things that go on here that are, you know, barely worth mentioning, but I may as well. I'm pretty sure that Astrios and his brothers tore the eyes out of Meroth's head just as revenge, because he stole one of their eyes, like one of each of their eyes, thinking it would give him wisdom. I'm pretty sure in revenge they stole his eyes. I might be wrong, but a lot of the book like suggests that that's exactly what happened. So, although they never like write a whole chapter about tearing his eyes out, they just kind of mention it in the background. I'm pretty sure they blinded him. So maybe they're a bit crueler than they came off. I'm starting to see why these guys are a rogue Space Marine chapter. They're, you know, pretty okay with stealing people's eyes. Also, Meroth ends up with some like weird parasitic bond with the demon inside the dead Space Marine's body. The two of them seem to be like linked to each other. They end up like guiding each other around the ship in a weird way. It's very strange. So there's something weird going on in the background with those two. But no one really bothers to look into it at this stage. Like, Ahriman realizes that this is a weird situation, but he doesn't decide to, maybe I should go check on the demon, or maybe I should, like, you know, ransack Meroth's broken mind to figure out what's going on. It's just kind of like, so, you two are close. Moving on. But hey, look, a bird. Anything to not look into this right now. During this whole bit, Astrios finds out that his dead brother is still walking around and has to kind of grapple with the whole thing of should he tell his other brothers. He decides not to. Sure, that won't bite him in the ass later. So there's another bit of foreshadowing for you. And he confronts Ahriman about it, and Ahriman kind of agrees to find a way to save this kind of dead-ish brother. Right? He's like, look, I'll bend myself to finding a way to fix this guy and get the demon out of him. Right? We good? So Astrios is like, all right, fine, okay. And Ahriman also ends up chatting to Carmenta a bit, the rogue tech priest that runs the ship. He ends up chatting with her for a bit, and they kind of realize there's a lot of similarity in their position. They're both like, they've both been banished by their people. They're both kind of on the run for trying to do something they thought was good in the first place and stuff like that. And they kind of come to this weird, like, mutual understanding of each other. They have, like, a weird respect for each other. Although Ahriman does think she's an abomination. But he's like, you're an abomination, and we all know it. But, like, so am I, so I guess we're cool.
Fair.
So that's, yeah, all that kind of shit goes on. And also, towards the end of this kind of traveling period, Ahriman kind of takes on Astrios as an apprentice of sorts, because Astrios is also a psyker. He's just not a very good one. So Ahriman kind of takes him under his wing and starts teaching him, like, proper Thousand Suns style sorcery, like the good shit. Because it's like, look, I'm stuck with you, you may as well be fucking useful. So, the majority of what he does at this stage is, like, have Astrios kind of change the way his mind works so that Ahriman can, like, leech power off of him if he needs to. So he can, like, use him as, like, a backup plan, basically. It's like, look, I'm needing to filter a lot of shit here. I'm just going to borrow some of you as well to help with this. It's like a Wi-Fi range extender, basically. Just turns him into that. So, right, the last thing I'm going to mention from this bit is, have you ever heard the term Mind Palace?
Yes, I have.
Right.
Yeah. Essentially where you can find everything that you have stored away in your mind, and you can always bring it back. You just have to. Well, some would say a mind room, but a palace is a little bit narcissistic, right?
It is, but I think the term palace is less about grandeur and more about scale. Because you gotta remember that these are space marines and they live for like thousands upon thousands of years, you know? So there's gonna be a lot to remember. Eventually, the memory hovel isn't enough. But yeah, fair. Also Thousand Suns are Ponzi arseholes. Of course, it's a palace. He didn't start with like a memory garden shed and work his way up. Like he definitely started with a palace. He's an arsehole. Okay, so Ahriman and basically all of the Thousand Suns use this concept of a mind palace, right, or a memory palace. Because, again, they're all academics. They all have all these weird beliefs about stuff. And one of them is that you can't actually forget anything. So, once in a while, Ahriman goes and visits his mind palace. And at this point, because he's trying to figure out what to do next, he spends a bit of time rummaging through his mind palace. And he goes into this one room, which is just nothing but these vases. And each one contains all the memories he has about each individual Thousand Suns. So he could go up to one and open it and get all the memories about Helio Isidorus and stuff like that. And what he does is he starts setting out to hunt down his brothers, right? The ones that he knows are not, like, automatons, the ones that are still kicking around. So it's a very limited number. And one by one, they travel around following these, like, last threads of memories Ahriman had about them. Because it's not like just his memories from before when they were a legion. It's also like every rumor he's heard about them. Every like, you know, like, oh, I know he was with this guy. That guy I heard was in this location at this time. Blah, blah, blah. So it's like every little bit of information that could possibly be related to this guy is in this location for him. So he uses this to hunt down a bunch of his old brothers. But every time they get there, they find that either the brother is gone already, like they fucked off already, right? Or they're dead. They find a corpse in its place. Like they find the like charred remains of this brother of Ahriman's. So they go through like 12 of these, and and just find either no sign of the brother ever being there, or sorry, no sign of the brother being there for a very long time, or the dead, burnt remains of the brother. And it very quickly, becomes apparent that every one of these brothers was found by the same people that found Ahriman, so Talbek's group, right? They have found every one of these 12 brothers and given them the same options: join us or burn, which is basically what Talbek did with Ahriman. He asked him to join him, Ahriman refused, next thing, fire tornado. So, since every time he finds where one of them should have been, there's no sign of them, or it's a burnt corpse, or, burnt remains. It's like every one of them has been given the same choice. So the same group has actually been going around finding all of the remaining, Thousand Sun sorcerers. And they're clearly very good at it, because Ahriman's checked 12 of these, and every one of them has been exactly the same. They've all been found by that group already. So, it's not great.
No.
Yeah. So, Ahriman kind of settles on going for one more brother, right? 13's the magic number here. But he knows about one brother who can both give him answers and will definitely be where Ahriman thinks he will be, right? There's no way this guy has been burnt or, joined them. He's definitely exactly where Ahriman expects him to be. So, this is kind of a change. He's no longer trying to find, allies or anything like that. He's just going for answers now, because he knows he can't get this guy to join him. So he sets out on this, 13th journey to find his brother. And this time he's going for a guy called Menkaura, which is a weird name to say. And Menkaura, he's a weird dude. He's a weird guy, right? He also, like Ahriman when they were the Thousand Sons, had this thing where he was in the group that do the, seeing the future, right? That was their thing. I can't remember which group. I think it's the Pavoni. Whatever. They were both in the same cult, which is all about seeing the future. The difference is that after they moved on from this and became all kind of chaosy, Ahriman decided, I'll just, not become a demonic soothsayer. Menkaura, on the other hand, decided to become some kind of crazy half-demon monster that can see every version of the future at all times. Which, two life paths, whatever. So he knows it's going to be where it is, and he knows this guy would not have been killed or have joined them because, again, he's a weird existential deity now that can see every possible future. So, yeah, kind of has an advantage in a fight,
A little bit.
Just a tad.
A little bit.
I like to think that he's based on Laplace's demon. I don't know if you know who Laplace was.
No.
It's a really, really obscure reference to a mathematician. I think he was a French mathematician from actual human history who had this idea that if you had a demon that basically knew everything at all times about what was currently going on and had endless ability with math, they could basically calculate the future. I like to think that that's what Menkaura is based on. Anyway, that aside, so this time when they jump out of the warp to get Menkaura, they stop over this little crystal moon. I say little, it's a moon, so it's fucking gigantic, but whatever. And the Titan Child kind of just orbits nearby, and Ahriman alone gets in a little shuttle and goes to this moon. But it's not on the surface of it. It's like the Death Star. There's one big, deep well right through the center of the thing into the heart of it. I don't know if shooting a rocket down it blows it up, but it might. But Ahriman gradually descends down this tunnel into the center of this crystal moon, where he finds Menkaura. And yeah, since the last time Ahriman saw him, this dude's transformed into some big demonic creature, right? But so has everyone Ahriman knew. That's a pretty standard thing to happen at this stage. So he's not really bothered by it. He doesn't even mention it. It's just kind of happen. long time no see, to this like 8-armed deity floating in the middle of this crystal sphere. It's the whole thing. So obviously Ahriman's just here for information now. He knows he's not getting an ally out of this. Menkaura is so beyond human scope that he's like, he has no interest in anything that is going on in reality. He just exists, right? It's like the whole thing of like, why would a god actually give a shit what humans do, right? Surely they have better things to do. Menkaura has better things to do than give a shit what Ahriman's doing, basically. So he makes a bargain with him. Right? He's like, look, I need answers. So Menkaura goes, all right, I'll give you answers if you give me a piece of information in return. All right? Info for info. Perfectly fair. Because although Menkaura can see the future, it doesn't mean he knows everything about the past. So there is things that he wants to learn. You know, he's trying to hoard information here. And Ahriman accidentally asks 2 different questions than the one he wants to. Just can't help himself, just accidentally asks 2 incorrect questions. First he asks about the fate of the Legion, and then and the Oracle himself. Oh, Menkaura is just referred to as the Oracle now, by the way. And eventually Ahriman gets to the point and asks him the proper question that he wanted, and it's, who the hell is hunting him? Who leads this Brotherhood of Dust that's hunting down him and all his brothers, right? Because, like, it's got to be someone with a serious axe to grind against Ahriman himself, is what he's thinking. Which is probably very egotistical to think that this, whoever it is did this, is only doing it to get Ahriman in particular. But that's Ahriman for you. He kind of thinks he runs the galaxy, I'll be honest with you. He kind of thinks he's the centre of all life. He gets better, but at the moment he's kind of an arsehole. But that's what he wants to do. He wants to know who the hell sent Tolbeck to come and get him. Who's doing all of this? And in typical Oracle fashion, he gets a really vague answer back about how basically everyone wants to hunt Ahriman. It's like, everyone that's still a loyalist fucking hates Ahriman, if they even know he exists. And if they don't, they're just gonna see Heretic and want to kill him anyway. And all of his past brothers fucking hate him, so they're gonna hunt him. And every other Chaos Warband hates him because, well, he's not in their Chaos Warband. So, you know, everywhere you turn, someone wants this guy dead. He's got like one ally in the galaxy, and it's a crazy rogue tech priest who's gradually losing her mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, who's hunting me? Everyone? I don't know. But eventually, after all the, you know, Oracle vague bullshit, he finally gets a real answer out of him, and it's Amon, the hardest guy for Ahriman to convince to join him in the rubric, is the one who's hunting him. Because you might remember, Amon was like a Magnus diehard. You know what I mean? And Ahriman finally talked him round, but obviously everyone went tits up, and he's been kicked out by his dad. So Amon's got a serious axe to grind against this fucker. So turns out Amon is the one leading the Cult of Dust to hunt down fucking Ahriman. So Ahriman now owes the Oracle tribute, so he needs to answer his question in return. And he just asks, why didn't he just let himself die after he was banished? Because, like, it was over, you know what I mean? That was it. There's no coming back. Ahriman's whole goal in life was to fix his Legion, and he burnt that bridge pretty fucking well. Almost literally. So why the fuck did he keep going? Why did he become Horkos and sit at the back of this, like, Chaos Legion, or Chaos Warband for so long? Why didn't he just let himself die? And after a bit of, like, soul searching, Ahriman realizes it's because he still dreams of hope. You know? He still thinks there's light at the end of this tunnel. Which is a weird one, you know? He's clearly a very optimistic guy. Almost psychotically so, I would say. But something about, you know, being challenged so directly about his reasons and stuff like that, it causes Ahriman to actually realize a lot of these things himself, you know, because he had been repressing a lot for a long time. So he hadn't really realized why he had kept going anyway. So it's only once Menkaura actually just directly challenges him on it, he realizes that he does still dream of hope. He still thinks they can fix this. So from this point forward, Ahriman is now working with the belief that he can fix what he did, rather than just survive another day kind of thing. So he's a lot more kind of directed now. But that's kind of the end of their exchange. Ahriman just goes to head back to the Titan Child so they can fuck off. He's got new plans of what to do next. Because now he's going to go hunt down Amon and kick his ass, basically. Or, I say kick his ass. At the moment, he's going to go find Amon to ask him what the fuck is going on. Like, what the fuck he wants, you know? Because, like, he knows he's hunting him. He knows that, like, why he's hunting him, because he deserves it. But he doesn't know, like, specifically why. There might be a greater reason to it. So he needs to find out. So he heads back. They are attacked on his way back. A couple of these, like, demonic space marines appear in his little ship and attack him. Ship crashes and all this shit. Ahriman gets vaguely injured in the crash. It's a whole thing. But in the end, they're all fine. When Ahriman's ship crashes, it does so back into the Titan Child, and the other space marines have to help him. They have to, like, save him. And the whole exchange kind of makes the other space marines go, like, look, mate, enough is enough. We didn't care what's going on. Give us some fucking answers. So Ahriman kind of has to give them some answers because he knows he needs them now, that he's got a plan going forward. So he has to kind of explain what's going on and, you know, who's hunting them and stuff. The easiest way for him to do this was just to project his memories of Amon into their minds. So they actually, like, know as if they lived it. Ahriman, like, dragging him into the rubric, and then the rubric going wrong and all this stuff. So they know how much this dude hates him. Okay, yeah, we see why he's hunting you now. You know, it just makes life easier. I mean, I guess when you're like a magical demigod, forcing your memories into someone's mind is actually easier than just explaining it. So, I guess that's why he did it. So everyone kind of gets on the same page for a bit here. Like, the Space Marines are now like, alright, we're less grudgingly following you now. Because Amon's a problem, right? Like, we're still the good guys. And that guy needs to die. You might be a bad guy, Ahriman, but Amon's also definitely a bad guy. So we may as well help you kill him. Because then there's only one bad guy kicking rather than two. Yeah, it's the whole thing. So they kind of get on board a bit now. And Ahriman kind of ends up just wandering around the ship after this for a while. Just thinking about why the fuck Amon's chasing him and stuff. He also tries to find Meroth for a while, just out of curiosity. And yeah, he doesn't really find Meroth, which is kind of weird. So the whole Meroth thing gets a bit stranger as time goes on. You're like, okay, so like his mind is broken. He seems to be somehow linked to the demon space marine he made, and now I can't find him anywhere. This is getting worrying. Again, Ahriman just kind of, ooh, a bird. Just doesn't bother looking into it at all. He's just waiting for this one to get him. But it's, at a certain point, it's his fault, whatever happens here. I had plenty of chances to look into this before it goes bad, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, after some weeks, they end up at their next destination, which is this, like, half-derelict, like, destroyed space station, right? And have I ever explained to you what an astropathic relay is?
If you have, I've definitely forgotten.
That's fine. I've probably mentioned the term astropathic relay or something, or just relay a bunch of times and never bothered to explain what it is. It's a pretty simple concept. So you know astropaths can send messages through the warp?
Yes.
Yep. Right. An astropathic relay, or an astropathic choir is the other term, is just when you get a bunch of them together so that they're stronger. So they can send a message further if you've got like 10 of them working together to do it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an astropathic choir if it's a group. An astropathic relay is when you have one of these groups used to like bounce messages through the galaxy. So like cell phone towers. Right?
Okay.
So if there's a planet relatively nearby, one astropath can get a message to this relay. The relay can then bounce it to the other side of the galaxy. So it's just a little space station that floats, relatively near a bunch of planets, and it just bounces messages back and forward. It's a really good place if you want to steal information from somewhere, right? Because you can just ransack this place, because it won't be that heavily guarded compared to, like, a planet, for example. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I guess.
Ahriman and a bunch of his brothers came here in the past and burnt the place, basically. They killed everyone inside, slaughtered the joint. Just because, right? Now they come back because Ahriman needs some info, and the next bit of info he needs has to come from a demon. So there are, there's rules for summoning demons. There always is, right? Where, like, you can make deals with them, or if you do certain things, they can't hurt you, stuff like that. You can summon better demons if you, provide proper sacrifices or find a particular location of value to them or something like that. And this place was obviously home to a massive slaughter that Ahriman himself did. So it's kind of a great location to summon a really powerful demon. For weird, I guess because a lot of people died here. And they were all astropaths, so they're all some kind of psyker. So it has a greater kind of effect in the warp and, sorcery bullshit, basically. So they go back to this place. Ahriman and the 3 Space Marines all go down. The 2 that are not psychers are going to act as guards. Ahriman and Astrios are going to go in and do the weird demon ritual. So the other 2 kind of just wander around this derelict station. And A is dead. There's no power in this place. Like, it's just darkness, right? And yeah, the 2 of them just kind of wander around while Ahriman and Astrios go to do this ritual. None of this is going to go wrong, obviously, because why would it, It'd be far too easy if it just went horribly wrong, like it's obviously going to. So, yeah, as the other 2 scout around, Ahriman and Astrios go into this one kind of central chamber far into the station to do the ritual. And, think of typical ritual stuff, like shitloads of candles, weird floating bowls of stuff, weird circles drawn on the ground. Very typical ritual stuff, right? It could not be a more box standard demon ritual. Classic chanting and all that. And as the ritual is completed, the shadows of this, like, weird, long fucking wings form, and eventually it solidifies. And because the wings are the shape of the actual demon, but the demon doesn't have to take its normal form once it, like, manifests into, like, a visible shape, right? They can take whatever form they want a lot of the time. I don't know, I think I've got is this the one? Yeah, so this is a Changer of Ways. It's one of Tzeentch's big boys. So this is the demon, or this is what they would look like in their actual form. So that's why the shadow is these giant wings. For the record, these guys love fucking Ahriman, right? These guys fucking love fucking Ahriman. So it's always these guys when it's a demon. But once it takes an actual form, it takes the form of Ahriman's twin brother who had died, ages ago. And it kind of just mocks him. So Ahriman does this last little bit of the ritual to bind this thing to him, so it can't, like, I think it can't lie, and it also can't, like, do anything out of his control. It's, like, stuck under his will. And then he starts kind of trying to talk to it, but it basically just takes the piss out of him and mocks him and taunts him and stuff. And eventually Ahriman just like, all right, whatever, mate, fuck off, and demands an answer from him about why or what Amon wants with him, basically. And the demon doesn't actually know what Amon wants with him. No one knows what the fuck Amon wants with him other than Amon. Right? Amon has bent great power to keeping that a secret, because he knew Ahriman would do exactly this. He would summon one of these fuckers to try and get some answers out of him. So Amon's made a point of hiding this, even from the demons somehow. When their whole thing is finding secrets. Ahriman then kind of goes on to go, alright, well, show me where Amon is, or tell me where Amon is, how I can find him. And the demon goes, well, I can't tell you, I have to show you. Weird magic mind information transfer. So this is a really bad idea, touching the demon, because then you're giving it like a physical link to you, and it can use you to do stuff. It's the whole thing. But Ahriman's kind of out of options, so he goes for it, and he, like, grabs the thing's hand, really terrible idea. In doing so, the binding Ahriman had put on it to stop it from being able to, murder him or anything, shatters. Really bad idea. Like, he knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what he thought was going to happen. But Ahriman realizes that when this happens, that actually he had never bound it. It was an already bound demon. It was just bound to Amon already. So, like I said, Amon knew he was going to do this. He planned ahead. He already summoned this demon and was like, "You're working for me now, mate. Just wait for Ahriman to summon something. You turn up, right? Just fuck with him." It's like everyone's like 8 steps ahead of Ahriman at this stage. He's been out of this whole like subterfuge game for far too long. He's a fucking rank amateur at this stuff right now. Although, for the record, when they did touch hands, Ahriman did get the information about where Amon is, so he does know where he is. But there's a more pressing issue of this fucking demon to deal with now. With the kind of ritual breaking down, with the binding breaking, all the shit starts to fall to the floor. Very ritual gone wrong stuff. Candles start hitting the ground and bowls shatter and stuff. Whatever. While this was going on, Astrios' 2 brothers that were just scouting around as guards realised that there's now demons popping up all over the station because it was a trap, obviously. And they kind of start fighting for their lives. Ahriman and Astrios bail out of the room with the demon, just hauling ass back to their little carrier ship to get the fuck out of here, now with demons popping up everywhere, so they kind of fight their way back out. Funnily enough, as they are making their way back, they end up, bouncing their way down a hallway like a fucking marble by just, wrapping themselves in a little, shield and, flicking themselves with force. So they just bounce halfway down the hallway like a weird Plinko. You just bounce as they get through this place. And eventually they end up lost within the tunnels of this gigantic fucking space station. Only to be saved by one of the brothers who just turns up out of nowhere, gives them directions, and then stands to hold back the demons that are following them. So they know that guy's dying. One of Astrios' brothers is getting fucking murdered. But he fights to the death. He empties every round he has in his gun, then draws a knife and continues to fight. So he holds them back for a while, which is pretty good. I will mention that outside this, because the Titan Child, the big void ship, is outside at this point, and they start getting attacked too. But because it's all, demons kicking around and the warp's going to hell, Aegon, the navigator, starts seeing all this crazy shit and freaking out. And he can control the void ship. And because he's freaking out so much, it's going to end up destroying the ship. So Carmenta just cuts him off, just isolates him in his little, navigator tower. So he's just trapped in there on his own, being tormented by demons and stuff. So that's a thing we'll deal with later. That comes up to something in a minute. But Ahriman and Astrios continue to flee through the ship, and they get back to their little carrier ship, right? Their docking bay area that they first landed in. When they get there, there is blood and bits of creature floating around in the air, and one of the Gatling guns on the ship is glowing red. So because it has an auto defense system, it'll attack anything that tries to attack it. So this thing's clearly been fighting stuff already. Demons have been here already. And they obviously run inside to get the ship to take off. And inside, they find the other of Astrios' brothers lying there, injured, heavily, bleeding. He's obviously fought his way back to the ship. I don't know. I'm going to find the name of this one, because the other one's dead, but it's Thidius that died a minute ago, saving them. Caden is the one that's that's inside the ship. So they get inside, they find Caden, and he's totally fucked up and bleeding and stuff. The benefit is that the space station doesn't have atmosphere, so it's cold vacuum. So his blood is freezing outside him and keeping the rest of the blood inside. So that's something. Just covering his wounds with his own blood frost. They start kind of setting up to get the ship to take off and stuff like that, because they need to, get the fuck out of here. And demons start attacking from outside, because they've been following them, obviously. And Ahriman starts to, like, prepare to defend them with weird psychic powers as the ship starts to, like, lift off. And by this stage, Caden's body has, like, went totally limp. They, like, talk to him for a bit when they get inside and realize he's about to die. Because he's, like, missing a limb and everything. Like, he's definitely going to die. But as, like, the retention shifts to, you know, we're currently being attacked, his body that was just kind of floating limp in the air kind of starts to, like, rise up again. And Ahriman kind of, like, turns to face it and is like, what the fuck is this guy doing? It's like, he should be... Wait, you were dead. Come on. But no, he realizes that his eyes have just went pure black right over, and his body is gradually repairing itself a little bit. And he realizes that he should have realized this was going on, because he saw all the evidence of this. You know, there was blood in the air, there was bits of flesh, the guns were, like, glowing red from having just been fired. And then they got inside, and there was only one thing here. So yeah, it turns out that it's Caden that's possessed. He was just fucking with them. So, as the ship is, like, taking off, obviously they get away from the demons, but now they've got the one inside to deal with. So Astrios, Caden, and Ahriman all end up fighting for a bit inside the, like, little cargo space of this ship. Of course, Caden has been possessed, right? But possession is a weird thing where there's different forms of possession. You can do it better or worse, basically, right? So, like, Ahriman could probably forcibly possess any normal human on any given day because they have, like, no ability to resist. But it would only take, like, a good slap or, like, enough pain or enough, like, you know, fighting against that person's natural desires. So, like, if he possessed, like, I don't know, a devout religious person and forced them to do heretical stuff, that might be enough to make them resist to throw him out. But, like, if you trap them and do a whole ritual for it, you just own that guy, right? Because, like, you've stripped away their own mind to take over that body, right? So, like, it depends how well you want to do it. You can put in more work. The demon that has possessed Caden had basically torn him apart and then forced itself upon him. So it's not possessed him very well. And Caden wasn't dead yet. He was still still barely alive when he was possessed. So he's still fighting against it. His soul is still there, right? So, like, willpower and mind and all that are still fighting against this thing, even if his body's destroyed. So Ahriman kind of makes, like, a last-ditch attempt as the thing impales him on some newly formed demon claws and throws his mind into this thing's and tries to, like, force it out of the body. Because he's like, look, you're barely holding on to that fucking dead body you're possessing. Out. So Ahriman ends up, like, battling this demon inside Caden's body to try and, like, release him from its possession. Luckily, it did a really shit job of it. And it's only around this point that Ahriman realizes Caden's still alive and is also fighting against it. So they do manage to kick the thing out of his body, and Caden kind of comes back. But he's obviously now going to be a bit demon-y, because his body's been kind of mutated a little bit by it. So that'll be an issue for the future. That's an issue for Ahriman later on, you know? Older Ahriman's problem. They just kind of head back to the ship. Now that they've got some answers and they know where Amon is, but they're down a space marine and the other one's dying. So, first rule, they knock Caden out cold with a shitload of drugs and toss him in, like, a vat just to keep him alive. But, like, we don't want him awake. We want him alive, but not awake, because we don't know what the fuck he's gonna be now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that's a good place to leave off for today, right? Because we're at a point now where Ahriman is setting up to go for Amon now. We've done the middle bit, you know? So, at the moment, Aegon has been banished from the ship, basically. He's isolated in his own little tower because he was freaking out. Ahriman and Astrios are, you know, are the only two fighters still going. Meroth's fucking hiding somewhere in the ship. The other Space Marine brother is still half demon because he's actually possessed. And Caden's now in a healing vat while they try to figure out what the hell to do with him. So there's a bunch of dilemmas that Ahriman's going to have to deal with pretty quick succession, you know? It's going to be one problem after another going forward. And I feel like that's a good place to start next time. You know, we can start off with some drama next time. What do you think?
Sounds good, Ryan.
Yep.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Round us out, man.
Well then, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Iterators of the Imperium podcast. It's been me, Mess, and Ryan, of course, and we will catch you in the next one. Take care, and peace.
Bye.